Well, look who we have now. It is our beloved colleague, high energy, Andrew says, Chapados. And, I mean, the rumors abound, Andrew. Are you doing a little moonlighting for Yacht Rock Radio, channel 311 on Sirius XM? Because I'm telling you, that announcer's voice is a dead ringer for yours, my friend.
You know, David, we all have our little side hustles and things we like to do on our free time. I'm not particularly familiar with what you're referring to at this moment, but I'll definitely check it out.
Okay, well, bit of an in-joke, but what is not a joke is what's happening right now, Andrew. We've had some of the various alternative party leaders and candidates on in the last hour and a bit. And, well, let me ask you, my friend. You live out in the Durham region, I do believe. What is your take on this election, Andrew? I find it baffling. I find it borderline weird, given the polling numbers. What do you say, my friend?
It's going to be interesting to see if somebody like Aaron O'Toole, who is from my neck of the woods, gets reelected by a populist that's probably going to reelect a progressive conservative. So I'm kind of wondering if they're going to, disavow him a little bit. They didn't want him to lead the federal party, but do they want him to be, a person that represents them moving forward? Obviously, that's in a different thing. But what I'm getting at here is that I don't see how some of the people in Ontario particularly vote one way in a federal election and in another way in a provincial election. Like, we see how many conservative premiers there are across the country, but most of those people seem to be fine with what Doug Ford is doing and what Justin Trudeau is doing, because I don't think they're that dissimilar from one another. Doug Ford is better at making infrastructure deals and getting transportation going a little bit better than Justin Trudeau's not doing that at all, for lack of a better word. But it's very interesting. Exactly. And it's going to be interesting to see how, people parse these waters in terms of how do you justify not liking Justin Trudeau's locking everything down and travel restrictions, and Doug Ford basically allowing the same thing, allowing Walmarts and what have you to stay open while shutting down all these businesses. So it seems like there's a little bit too much party favoritism, whether it's historical voting, I want to stay with that party, my parents voted for them, or I just don't like red versus blue. So I'm interested to see how many of these independent parties gain ground. I know New Blue is polling a little bit higher than I expected. The Green Party, maybe people don't really know what they stand for as like a real globalist party. But I'm wondering how good these smaller parties are going to do, even though people seem to be saying, David and Tamara, that Doug Ford's probably going to win more seats tonight in this election and have an even greater majority.
That's what the polls are saying, Andrew. But I think you touched upon something I want to delve into a little deeper, Andrew, and that is the history in Ontario, which for the last 100 years, more or less, when you see, say, a Liberal federal government in office on Parliament Hill, it tends to be a progressive Conservative government at Queen's Park and vice versa. There's something about, I don't know, the Ontario voter, which I can't quite put my finger on, that they like sort of a counterbalance in terms of who's in Queen's Park and who's on Parliament Hill. And maybe Doug Ford and Justin Trudeau both realize that, because we've seen Doug Ford almost campaigning with Justin Trudeau, showing up at photo op. Meanwhile, I don't think, and Tamara and Andrew, correct me if I'm wrong, did Justin Trudeau show up at one Stephen Del Duca event? It's incredible. So is that at play here, that both Justin Trudeau and Doug Ford, for their own selfish self-interest, realize that it's good for, if it's Team Red on Parliament Hill, it should be Team Blue at Queen's Park?
Well, what people have said over the years is Canada and Canadians vote out people. They don't vote people in. They get fed up with somebody like Stephen Harper for 11 years, and they vote him out. And then they get fed up with somebody else, apparently not Justin Trudeau, but they get fed up and they vote the person out. Stephen Del Duca, I was reading this morning, people expect him to lose his own riding, which would be just hilarious if you ask me. I guess the platform he came out with, which was terrible, which was kids, you must be vaccinated to even get into school. I guess that didn't resonate with parents. It would be funny if he lost, and Justin Trudeau, when he was campaigning, it seemed like with Doug Ford at electric car plants and other events, and you could say that it was good that they got along, even though one's federal and one's provincial, and one answers to the other. But in my eyes, it's not good when people who are supposed to be polar opposites are getting along that well. I expect them to work together, but I don't expect them to work that well together. Like, would you think like Trump is getting along with like Gavin Newsom and they're buddy at events? You wouldn't really think that. It might be a bit more stark of a difference, but I still think it relates to how close the ruling, the ways that they rule of Justin Trudeau and Doug Ford actually are. They're not that dissimilar, as I said. Like, you get more random highways opened under Doug Ford, I'll give him that. But you still get the gas prices. You still get like the social justice. You still get him kicking people out of events, like you saw just a few minutes ago of yourself, David Menzies, when you tried to just give him a wonderful gift of a cheesecake. I rue the day when I see somebody turn down a cheesecake, David Menzies. And furthermore, they're keeping out not just people who are like yourself, where they've had 15 years of experience, as you said, talking to Doug Ford, going to his events, even as you famously tell the story of he wanted a show on Rebel News one given time. But they're also kicking out left-wing people, as you saw that, I don't know how to pronounce her name, but she takes people's cartoons, pretends that they're theirs, and goes on Dean Blundell's terrible show all the time.
Karima Saeed.
Karima Saeed.
There you go. We all have trouble saying her first name, but bless her for trying to get in. I don't think that should be kept out from any of these events, even if it is to go and cry on Dean Blundell about it after 12 people. But I digress. And I think that Doug Ford is being hidden from the voters. He was on this campaign trail. He didn't take any questions, any straight interviews. You can't go into his events. You can't ask him real questions. And I'm hoping that people are going to see that, but I don't think enough. I don't think enough people saw it. I don't think this campaign was long enough for anybody to make a real decision outside of what they've already, preconceived as the right thing to do.
Mm-hmm. Well, and we see some votes are slowly starting to trickle in a little bit here.
Oh, okay then.
So I think we have them pulled up on screen, the Ontario votes. So, yeah, Conservatives are definitely in the lead thus far, it appears.
And these are very early returns,
there's
of course,
some
right?
solid. So the solid there is elected, and then there's the more graded are potential. I'll turn my screen brightness up for you there, David. So for anyone
we can see it
viewing there, and then if you click on show more results, you can scroll through and see. I didn't realize how lengthy this list was of
it's our tax dollars at work here.
Other
at
parties.
CBC.
Well,
Yeah.
and one of the other parties, the name alone is baffling to me, and it's what do you make of this, Andrew Chapados? The Ontario Moderate Party. I mean,
yeah, there's a lot of.
It sounds like a
ones.
bunch of librarians got together and went into politics.
Consensus Ontario.
What about
none
the
of the above
Communist
direct
Party of Canada brackets Ontario?
Yeah,
Get your stuff together here. Where are you campaigning?
And I don't know if that's the case this year, but often you have the Communist Party on the ballot, and you also have the Marxist-Leninist Party on the ballot. It's like, hey, you crazy Marxists, can't you all get along and just form one party? I mean, how far apart are you if it's the Communist Party versus the Marxist-Leninist Party?
But don't
How
we
many
feel
people
that
are gonna?
on the other end too with the New Blue and the Ontario Party?
Indeed, I
but
agree.
who actually look to have a decent showing so far. So you see the Greens are at 6.8%, New Blue's at 3%, and
That's
Ontario
good.
Party's at 1.7%.
What is your analysis, Mr. Chapados?
Vote Communist Party, I believe. No, I'm just kidding. What's interesting to me is there has to be some sort of disconnect between what people believe some of these parties stand for and what they actually stand for. I'm like, the Green Party is an admitted globalist party. They have a global party where that receives funding from the entire world of Green Party parties. They all stand for the same thing. They're not like this environmentalist party that people thought they were like 25 years ago. They're just an even further left NDP party. And then when you look at Andrea Horwath, who is one of these NDP leaders who they just keep throwing in, even though they do seemingly worse and worse every time, maybe a little bit better, maybe a little bit less, her and Jagmeet. And their first order of business, what was it? Free dentistry and children transitioning genders. Like, who does that appeal to who's just waking up in the morning and be like, you know what, this government is falling apart. We have no money. Gas is through the roof. But if only those teens could get transitions free of cost, then we will be saved. So I wonder how much people actually read into these things at this point. And Stephen Del Duca, as Dakota Christensen puts him, as the turtle guy. Like, it's kind of being handed to Doug Ford at this point, which I don't necessarily want anybody to vote for one particular party, but just go off the board for once, people. You don't know anything about these candidates, then go off the board. It's clearly not working what we have, or maybe you think it is. Maybe you think that 202 when we drove home today is a great price for gas, like an 80-cent increase in the last 3 months. Maybe you think that's good. Maybe you think inflation is good. Maybe you think, like sending money to Ukraine is amazing. So there's some people out there who just think this is a great way to live. And, I think one of those people is David Menzies.
And Andrew, I just
I'm kidding, of course.
If, of course, the NDP fail to form government, which is probably likely, and maybe even fail to become the official opposition, surely this is Andrea Horwath's last kick at the can. It's number 4. No major party leader in Canada has ever gone up to the plate for a 5th time. If Stephen Del Duca fails to win his that seat in Vaughan Woodbridge, surely that's curtains for him. So could we be seeing 2 resignation speeches at the end of the evening, potentially?
I think if Stephen Del Duca fails to keep his seat, then he can't be the leader anymore. I'm not so certain about Andrea Horwath, as we see some people. Where is this? The Ford Party, which David Menzies will not be invited into. That's a racist flag in the right that Union Jack, I believe, is what we're led to believe. I don't know if they'll fire Andrea Horwath. I mean, the NDP and far left groups in general, you tend to fail up. Look at Kamala Harris. She is the biggest failing up politician in the history of Western society, I think. I think Andrea Horwath might stick around, David, even if she wins. She's got 2nd place right now. I mean, I don't know if this is a bad sign that people are going further and further left and right, maybe.
Oh, I would put money on it that you're wrong on that account, Andrew, because I understand even within the NDP caucus, there's a little club called the 901 Club, and it's so named because if she fails again, they want her to resign 1 minute after the polls close. So I think
holograms they're showing.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's dissension in the ranks. She's been the leader, I think, Tamara, for 13 years. Wow. So her best before date is really coming up there. Any last thoughts, Andrew, as we go on during this night?
Yeah, CBC, you see what 1.7 billion of your dollars gets there. A bunch of people nobody's ever heard of talking about a holograph. But I think what we're going to see tonight, David, is same old, same old. Doug Ford's going to come out. He's going to smash a cheesecake onto the ground in victory. I don't think the Liberals make any movement other than the fact that they'll go back to a bit where they were before. And I'm gonna do a famous David Menzies bet on Andrea Horwath. She gets fired, $25. How about that?
Okay, you're on. $25. That almost matches the bet I have with our colleague Lincoln Jay. I don't know if you know about this, Tamara. We have a bet. What comes first? The Leafs win the Stanley Cup or I die? I'm betting on the Grim Reaper. Okay. Yeah,
so. Are we including inflation in this bet?
Because
that could be worth millions in the future if we're factoring inflation.
Okay. Well, Andrew, thank you so much. If indeed narrating Yacht Rock Radio, Channel 311
I don't know what that is
your side hustle, you get back to work, my friends. Spinning
another
those,
episode with David Menzies. Steely Dan's up next, everybody.
Steely Dan.
Thank you for
love
watching.
Steely Dan, my friend.
Sorry for being underdressed, you guys. I appreciate you both. You're doing a great job. Have a wonderful night.
And it's nice to see you're supporting such a woke company as Levi's, Andrew.
He definitely
just worn a jean jacket, I guess.
Okay, then. Andrew, thank you so much for your time, my friend. Hey, folks, before you know it, September will be here. That's when the Conservatives are going to have their latest leadership convention. Do you want to get your news from the legacy media? I sure don't. And if you like the coverage we're bringing you, please go to leadershipreports.ca. That's leadershipreports.ca. And if you can chip in $1 or $3 to cover our expenses, we would greatly appreciate that.